The midday sun burned unforgivingly over the canyon, turning the red walls into molten slabs of fire as the desert wind carried dust in long, restless breaths. Ryan Claythorne, a lone cowboy riding his buckskin horse, had been following a thin trail of blood drops he'd spotted near the dried creek. At first he thought it was from a wounded deer, maybe an injured Mustang, but the deeper he rode into the canyon, the more uneasy the silence became. The desert had a way of swallowing sound and spitting out secrets, and Ryan, who had lived long enough, among outlaws and broken men, knew the land, was trying to tell him something. He followed the trail until it ended, abruptly at a large split between two canyon walls, a place where rocks had fallen recently, forming a rough slope of boulders. Something about the mess looked too fresh, as if the earth had shifted just moments before. Ryan tethered his horse, climbed carefully, and that was when he heard it, a sharp, involuntary gasp of pain. Not an animal, a human. He froze. "Who's there?" he called gently. Another strained breath answered him. He climbed higher and saw her wedged between a fallen slab and the canyon wall, an Apache girl, blood trickling down her arm, her leg pinned beneath a rock. Her long black hair was tangled with dust, her clothes torn, and her face pale from pain and dehydration. But her eyes burned with fierce determination. When she saw the cowboy, she did not plead, she did not sob. She simply held his gaze with a strength that surprised him. "Make it quick, cowboy." "I won't scream," she said, breath trembling but spirit unbroken. Ryan raised his hand slowly, showing he meant no harm. "Easy now. I ain't here to hurt you." She studied him, trying to decide if he was lying. In times like these, trust could kill you. But so could refusing help. She swallowed hard.
"The rock?"
"I can't feel my leg. Do it fast. If you have to cut me free, then cut." Ryan's chest tightened at her words. She thought he was here to amputate, that he was the kind of man who would mutilate her to save time. "No," he said firmly. "I ain't cutting anything off you. I'm getting you out whole." She blinked, startled. No one had spoken to her like that in a long time. Not even her own people during the raid that had separated her from her tribe and sent her fleeing into the canyon. She nodded faintly. Ryan knelt, examining the rock. It wasn't impossible to move, but it was heavy. Too heavy for one man to lift without leverage. "You got a name?" he asked. Her lips parted, hesitant. "Nayeli." "All right, Nayeli," he said. "You hold on. I'm gonna free you, but it's gonna hurt some." She exhaled slowly, like a warrior preparing for battle. "Do what you must." Ryan wedged his shoulder under the rock, braced his boots and pushed with everything he had. Pain shot down his spine, muscles screaming, sweat dripping into his eyes. The rock shifted an inch. Nayeli bit down on her lip so hard he thought she'd draw blood. But she didn't make a sound. Again he pushed. The rock scraped loudly, shifting a bit more, and suddenly her leg slid free and she gasped. This time louder, her body trembling. Ryan dropped to his knees, panting. "You're out," he said, chest heaving. Nayeli tried to sit up, but her strength gave out. She collapsed forward and he caught her gently. "Easy, easy now." Her eyes fluttered open again. "I told you. I wouldn't scream." Ryan gave a small, amazed smile. "That you didn't." He lifted her carefully and carried her down the rocks, toward his horse. The moment sunlight hit her face without the shadow of the canyon walls, she winced but kept her chin high. The desert wind tugged at her hair, and Ryan saw clearly how exhausted she truly was. "Put me down," she whispered, voice barely audible. "I can walk." "Not a chance," Ryan replied. "You're hurt and half-starved." She opened her mouth to argue, but another wave of pain forced her into silence. He lifted her onto his horse, climbed up behind her, and wrapped one arm around her waist to keep her steady. She felt tense, untrusting, but she didn't pull away. "Where's your tribe?" he asked softly as the horse started moving. Her jaw tightened. "Gone. Raiders attacked us. I ran. I should have died with them." Ryan felt her trembling. "You survived. That means something." Nayeli turned her face slightly, eyes searching his profile. "Why help me?" "Cowboy and Apache, not friends." "People are people," Ryan said. "Pain is pain. And I ain't riding away from someone who needs saving." Her breath caught faintly. Part disbelief, part gratitude she didn't know how to express. They rode deeper into the canyon toward Ryan's temporary camp. The desert sun slowly dipped, turning gold, and shadows grew long. Naomi leaned against him, not from trust, but because she was drifting in and out of consciousness. Ryan tightened his grip protectively. "Don't sleep yet," he murmured. "We're almost there." But she couldn't fight any longer. Her head rested against his chest as the horse carried them through the fading light. And for the first time in hours, she felt safe. Not because she believed cowboys were kind. Not because she believed strangers didn't betray. But because this man hadn't flinched when she'd faced him with the certainty of death. Because he had lifted the weight crushing her without hesitation. Because he had seen her not as an Apache girl, but as a wounded soul worth saving. The desert night grew colder as they approached camp. Ryan felt her breathing shallow and hurried his pace. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring or what danger might follow her. But tonight one thing was clear. Fate had crossed their paths for a reason, and neither of their lives would ever be the same again. Ryan laid Naomi gently by the campfire, its glow dancing along the canyon walls like restless spirits. The flames crackled as he fetched water from his canteen and tore strips of cloth from his spare shirt. He cleaned the dirt from her wounds, noting the deep gash on her arm and the ugly swelling along her leg. She winced but still refused to cry out. It impressed him more than he cared to admit. Few men he'd known had that kind of grit. "You lost a lot of blood," he murmured. "You need food, water, and rest." Naomi stared into the fire, her face half illuminated, half swallowed by the shadows. "Why do you care? My people and yours have been enemies." "I ain't your enemy," Ryan said quietly. "Not today." She studied him for a long moment before looking away, unable to understand this man or the strange calm he carried. The desert was a place of harshness, yet he moved with a softness that felt foreign to her world. As the fire crackled, Ryan handed her a tin cup of warm water. Naomi hesitated, then accepted it, sipping slowly. Her throat was raw, each swallow painful, but life returned to her eyes with every drop. "Where were you headed before the canyon trapped you?" Ryan asked. She let the cup rest in her hands. "I was trying to reach my aunt's village beyond the south ridge. It was the only place left. After the raiders came." Her voice faltered, grief tightening her chest. Ryan nodded, not pushing further. He knew the silence of someone mourning the unthinkable. After a moment, she asked, "Why are you alone in these lands?" Ryan poked the fire with a stick, watching the sparks scatter. "Looking for work. Looking for peace, I guess. A man spends enough years fighting. He starts wanting something quieter." "Did you find it?" she whispered. He shook his head. "Not yet." The night deepened, stars spilling across the sky like scattered diamonds. Coyotes cried in the distance, and the desert cooled enough that Ryan draped his coat around Naomi, even though she weakly tried to refuse it. "Rest," he said. "You're safe tonight." She gave him a searching look, as if trying to uncover his motives, but exhaustion claimed her and her eyes fluttered closed. Ryan stayed awake, keeping the fire alive, listening for danger. He didn't know who had attacked her tribe or whether they were still nearby. He tightened his hand around his revolver. By dawn, the desert was washed in soft pink light. Naomi awoke with a start, disoriented until she saw the cowboy carefully preparing a poultice from desert herbs. "These'll help the swelling," he explained. "My ma taught me a thing or two before she passed." Naomi watched him work. His hands were rough, calloused from years of labor, yet unexpectedly gentle. She felt a strange warmth in her chest, a confusion of safety and unfamiliar trust. "Thank you," she whispered. Two simple words, but he understood how hard they were for her to speak. Over the next hours, he helped her stand. The pain in her leg was sharp, but the swelling had eased slightly. She leaned against him as they practiced, taking small steps near the camp, her fingers gripping his arm for balance. Several times she stumbled, and each time he caught her before she hit the ground. "You're getting stronger," he reassured. "Stronger than most men I know." She almost smiled, something soft flickering in her eyes, but it vanished quickly. When she sensed something on the wind, a distant thrum of hoofbeats, Ryan heard it too. He instinctively stepped in front of her, scanning the canyon mouth. A group of riders appeared, dust rising behind them, raiders. Naomi's face drained of color. "They followed me," she whispered. "I brought danger to you." Ryan didn't hesitate. "Doesn't matter. I'm not letting them take you." He guided her behind a large boulder and drew his revolver. His heartbeat steadied, not out of bravado, but because he had something to protect now, something worth standing for. The raiders approached armed and scanning the camp. Ryan stepped out, placing himself between them and Naeli. "This camp's occupied," he said firmly. "Move along." The leader sneered. "We're looking for an Apache girl. She belongs to us." Ryan's jaw tightened. "She don't belong to anyone." The raiders laughed, but their eyes darkened. One reached for his rifle. The instant his hand twitched, Ryan fired a warning shot, kicking up sand at the man's feet. The canyon thundered with the echo. Silence followed, thick, dangerous. Then the leader spit on the ground. "Not worth the trouble today," he growled. "But she'll die sooner or later. You can't protect her forever." "Cowboy." They turned their horses and rode off, disappearing into the shimmering desert horizon. Ryan waited until the dust settled, then returned to Naeli, who had watched everything with trembling breath. "You could have died," she said. "Maybe," he answered. "But not letting them take you, that was the right choice." Her voice cracked. "Why?" Ryan met her eyes, and for a moment the world fell silent. "Because you're alive. Because you fought to survive even when everything was taken from you. Because leaving you to them would make me less of a man than I ever want to be." Her eyes glistened with emotion, pain, gratitude, and something deeper she wasn't ready to name. He helped her back to the fire, and together they sat as the morning sun warmed the canyon. "When my leg heals," she said softly, "I will continue to my aunt's village. I don't know what future waits for me there." "Then I'll take you," Ryan replied. "As far as you need." She blinked, stunned. "Why would you do that?" "Because a journey's easier when you're not alone." Naeli lowered her gaze, touched in a way she couldn't explain. The cowboy had saved her body, but his kindness was slowly mending her spirit too. She didn't know where this bond between them would lead, whether it was fate, or chance, or something the desert had woven between two lost souls. But she did know one thing. She was no longer afraid of the world ahead, not with him beside her. As the fire crackled and the canyon wind softened, Ryan poured her another cup of warm water. "Rest now," he murmured. "You're safe." And for the first time since the raid, Naeli believed him.